It is Wednesday night. You know what that means. You are tuned in to Wrestling Inc. across all of the platforms. YouTube, Twitch, Periscope, Facebook, checking out the audio, whatever you fancy, we got it for you. As we're coming to you, 3 countries coming together to give you your Wednesday night podcast here on Wrestling Inc. I'm Justin LaBar, coming to you from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. North of me, across the border in Toronto, he is former WWE referee Jimmy Korderas, and down south in beautiful Puerto Rico is the Demon Diva Issa. Ladies, gentlemen, how are we doing tonight? Ladies first, Issa, how are you tonight?
Doing great, recovering from COVID, but I thought tonight's episode was fun, so.
No, you'll kick COVID's ass. I know you. Jimmy, how is it up in Toronto?
It's a little bit fluctuating, the weather here. We go from extreme cold to comfortable weather to very cool nights, but other than that, like I like to say, it's better than shoveling snow in your driveway, so I will take it.
Yes, exactly. Perspective is always the key, and shoveling snow. The worry, it's one step worse than having to rake leaves, because inevitably you're raking and bagging leaves when the wind blows. That's like the ultimate joke of Mother Nature. Is trying to bag leaves. So great, everybody's joining us here tonight, of course, especially in the live chat. That's being part of us. Of course, they can do your super chat and be the fourth co-host for a moment. And I know I've seen people too. People have asked me why do we have the long, dramatic, cinematic countdown? I'll give you guys a little peek behind the podcast psychological curtain here. The reason we do that is one, to build a little bit of anticipation, but the technical reason is because obviously it's for those watching live. If you're checking out the archive, you can fast forward, you can what have you. But those watching live, we have a great live audience. Once we start, and then it alerts people, or they need to refresh or do whatever. We don't want to just jump right into conversation or even the pleasantries, and you miss everything we're doing is for a reason. We don't want you to miss. So the countdown is a chance to kind of let everybody kind of filter in and not miss out on the conversation. Of course, we jump into the news stories first. So that's the whole point. So there's your peek behind the format of why we do what we do. But I always love getting different people. People love the music. Some people think that we're getting ready to go into like a great big battle together. It always cracks me up, the comments that get sent to me about the countdown. Let's go ahead and talk some news. Wrestling Inc. If you've not checked out Wrestling Inc., brand new design, brand new layout. Please check it out. I think personally it's very eye-catching. You don't have to deal with ads or anything on the homepage. A lot of visuals, very, very fun, very easy to navigate. So check it out if you haven't. I would assume you have. Otherwise, how did you find this podcast? Let's talk about this first news story. Let's talk about Ric Flair. Now, Flair, of course, was it last weekend? Or has it been 2 weekends ago? How many weekends has it been? So you were there.
2 weekends ago. Last weekend he was here in Puerto Rico, actually.
That's right. Actually, remind me to get back. Let's get back to that too before we move off of Rick. But 2 weekends ago, Rick had his last match ever, big show in Nashville, tag match, and him and Andrade El Idolo versus Jay Lethal and Jeff Jarrett, and Rick admitting that he did in fact have some scares. We'll say he confirmed that he suffered some medical issues and that he passed out. Twice, in fact, during this last match. He said this on his podcast. He goes, quote, "I don't think people realize that I passed out twice. My regimentation for training was so strict that I kept my weight. I wanted my perfect weight to be like 220 going in. I didn't hydrate because I had it in my mind that I had to weigh 219. Anyway, I went to the ring at 217 pounds. And what happened during the body of the match, I just became dehydrated. And when I was standing on the apron, I looked at Jay, which started the whole wheel of motion. I said, man, I think I'm getting sick because I was getting lightheaded." He goes on to talk about a spot that they even altered called an audible because he had fear of being able to pull it off properly and safely. Again, you can read more of the quotes on Wrestling Inc. From his podcast, To Be the Man. A funny note also is that not just the fans were concerned about Flair following his near 30-minute match. The Undertaker, who of course we know was sitting ringside, Undertaker came to Flair's aid after the entire thing, and Flair says it was all dehydration. Undertaker came running, and I had like 6 beers there, and he took them out of my hand and said, "You're drinking 2 Gatorades." So Dr. Nice. Deadman coming to the aid of one of his former WrestleMania opponents. He said, obviously we know Rick gets through it. He does the match. He's okay now. So I feel like he gives us license to laugh at this story because it's kind of fun.
Yeah, I mean, he gets his license to laugh, but it was still scary for all of us watching. Like, I feel like as soon as it was announced, most of us had so many fears that something could go wrong here. I'm glad that dehydration is the only thing that he's suffering, that he's okay from it. But, laugh about it now, but it's not funny. I mean, Ric Flair is older. He's gone through a lot of health issues, and I was personally concerned, but I'm glad he made it through it.
Jimmy, you've reffed probably thousands of matches in your career. Did dehydration ever get the better of you? Did you ever cramp up in the middle of a match? Did you ever get lightheaded and almost pass out? Like, did you ever have any like close calls with dehydration and cardio?
I would say not that close. I mean, there were times where I did get a little dehydrated and felt it, but not to that extreme. I was very fortunate not to have that kind of accident or whatever you want to call it happen to me in the ring. I've had some physical stuff happen to me where I've been injured, but other than that, nothing like this. And like Issa said, I'm just glad that he's okay from it, because this could have been really tragic, especially for someone like Ric Flair. Let's be honest, he's not a spring chicken anymore, and he can't do a lot of the things he used to do. But at the same time, I'm happy in one sense that he got to go out on his terms and finish his career the way he, I guess, wanted to finish it, for lack of a better term. But at the same time, very scary situation, and it could have been a much, much worse. And thank goodness that it turned out the way it did. And thank goodness for the dead man continuing to be our leader, the leader of the boys in the locker room, who, presented the 2 Gatorades as opposed to the 6 beers.
Yeah. Didn't come armed with any Jack Daniels in that moment.
No.
Not needed. Look, we'll get back to Issa and Ric Flair and Puerto Rico in a second, but it's like everybody's going to agree. Even Rick would agree if he asked this answer honestly. There was no better ending than what he could have been when he had his last match at WrestleMania versus Shawn. Obviously, what's done is done. He since came, he did other things. I mean, this was a pretty good, obviously it's a great house, very respectable house. They ended up having an upgrade venue. He had some real talent in the ring with him. He had a lot of great talent, Hall of Famers sitting ringside. Overall, the show, was very good. Issa, of course, was on site. She talked about it before. So, I guess maybe this is the best, to get a big time draw the way he did, both for pay-per-view and for live gate, to be basically one of the largest independent shows ever. That's a pretty good thing to go out on at 73. So that probably is the best. I hope that he stays with this, and that was in fact the last match. So we'll see. Issa, I know you'd even teased it that it was going to happen, and of course you're there in Puerto Rico. Rick got a little physical with the Colognes, correct, in Puerto Rico?
Yes, with Carlitos Colon. What a moment! What an epic moment, especially celebrating the 49th anniversary of WWC, which is like, what started wrestling here in Puerto Rico. Well, not what started it, but it's one of the biggest promotions here.
They put it on the map for sure.
Yes, and they had a confrontation. It was so good to see it. I know that Colon has been having a couple of health issues on his own, so it was just great to just see them have that moment for nostalgia factor. And it was just a small confrontation, nothing crazy. So everybody went crazy for it.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yes.
All right. Well, we go from awesome to not such. Mm-hmm. The drama continues in the investigation into Vince McMahon Jr. WWE's latest SEC filing on Tuesday revealed an additional $5 million, a new $5 million in payments that McMahon made to 2 more individuals. The company stated that the payments are unrelated to the allegations that initially led to the special committee's investigation. The unrecorded expenses tied to McMahon now total $19.6 million. It was at 14 and change, but these 2 more add this $5 million adds up, gets it up to 19.6. And so now the company he once he led for decades is now cleaning up a bit of a financial mess, because as a result, the company's had to then admit that they've had to go back now on previous years' financial records and honestly adjust where they can, and they were supposed to be reporting the second quarter of 2022's financials, but that's being delayed because they're trying to go back and having to alter now because this is, WWE expects to revise its financial statements from 2019, 2020, and 2021, and the first quarter of 2022 to account for McMahon's improper spending. WWE is also examining its disclosure controls and procedures and internal control over finance and report. And also, again, on the story, just talking about SEC and federal prosecutors looking at payments made by McMahon. At least 8 law firms now are investigating whether WWE engaged in unlawful business practices at the expense of investors. On the one hand, Jimmy, I go, this is just going to get messier before it ever gets better, if it ever gets better. Mm-hmm. So I'm glad that whether it was by his own volition or whether he just listened to those around him, that he did step away, because this would be an even greater distraction if he was still trying to be there every week at TV while this is going on. So in that regard, it's like, all right, well, I guess good that the guy that we thought maybe would die in the job, that he did at least step away while this is happening. But it can't be ignored how a legacy as a pioneer and an innovator. If this keeps going, what's the leg? Does this darken his legacy?
Yeah, I think it does, because perception is reality. These allegations that are coming out, and listen, I'm not trying to underplay it by saying, in corporate America, stuff like this happens a lot, but this is getting a lot of play because Vince McMahon is a very, public figure, especially in the eyes of wrestling fans. And this does not look good for him. So him stepping away, he's also a very smart man. Let's put it that way. Let's not forget that. And I'd like to think that it was his idea to step back to save the company, so to speak, because I think he knows that if he stuck around, the attention would be all on what this, all these allegations and this money and that sort of thing. As far as the legal side of things, I'm not a lawyer. I can't speak to that. All I know is that it was the best move he could make and put the people. I think right now he has the right people in place. Whether it was his decision to put those people in place, I don't know. I can't speak to that. I like to think he was the one who was responsible for kind of handpicking them and placing them in their positions. But at the same time, it was the only move that made sense if you want to save the company, because you want the company to be remembered as an innovator in this industry.
Yeah, Issa, none of the three of us have passed the bar. But to Jimmy's point, it's like, this is, obviously his father, now him, and then the next generation, of course, Stephanie, Triple H, if Shane comes back in the fold, we'll have to see. And then, but beyond them, Shane's got kids. Stephanie and Triple H have 3 girls, I believe. So, like, this is something that potentially could be there for the generations on, for the McMahon family to continue to be part of. Even if they sold to a parent company like a Disney or whomever, they could still be there and be the people that run day to day. But yeah, we're not legal experts, but if Vince would have stayed in his position and this continues to happen, I think it's open season, right, for people to try to come after criminal complaints to try to that could really tear the company down. This is serious stuff. So it really puts in perspective Vince stepping away several weeks ago.
Yes, and to Jimmy's point, I also hope that he kept that in mind. Not only the image of the business itself, but also the people that are still there, that are part of the family, and the future generations of this family to come. I will say, we knew more was coming out, and I personally think, a personal opinion, that's the reason why he chose to step away. It didn't feel like this affected as much as when he was still coming out, having appearances. When the first couple of allegations came out, it wasn't a good look. Now today we read that and it's like, yeah, okay, we kind of knew this was coming. Let's move on, because the product itself is interesting. Again, they're getting the numbers, so obviously the right choice was made by Vince. And this would have came out eventually. But I'm glad that he stepped away, and that doesn't take away from what's going on in WWE right now.
I'll be very curious what Vince's future is as it relates to the public spotlight. Obviously, it seems like he's done, obviously, and the role that we've all known him in for so many decades. But what I mean is, he kind of stopped doing a lot of interviews anyways in the last year, so I don't expect interviews. But does he ever get inducted to the WWE Hall of Fame? Does things like that? I'll be curious how long this stuff goes on, what ultimately becomes of the findings of just what the legacy is of the remainder of his life and beyond. So
the unfortunate thing, the unfortunate thing is I think these allegations are going to stick with him. And you mentioned Hall of Fame. At this time, I don't see that happening.
Yeah, right. All right, so of course, Wrestling Inc. Day to day got your news covered for you every single day. So keep checking with them
thoroughly.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. I mean, there's news reports going on Wrestling Inc. There's great great opinion pieces that are going up there. Kind of so really something for everybody on Wrestling Inc. Please check out the website if you have not. But of course, we appreciate you sticking with the podcast. Subscribe, like, tell a friend, tell a friend, tell a friend. Tell us how are you listening? Where are you listening? Where in the world are you, Carmen San Diego? Love to hear it. We got a super chat that we'll do. It's WWE related, so we'll do the last bit of WWE content before we get into Dynamite. Coming to us from Brian Barry. Brian asked, "Do you think Cross, I assume Karrion Kross, is added to the championship match, Justin, and is Bray next?" I do think Cross is added probably to this Clash of the Castle. It's why hurry up and have him inserted and attack Drew and everything as we're approaching that show. Why have him now? Or you could just hold him and have him show up on the SmackDown after that pay-per-view or that premium live event. So I do think Cross gets added, and I do think that it's significant because triple threats obviously are a whole different dynamic. It provides you many different scenarios of getting out of the match in terms of protecting people. And by the way, Roman Reigns is still carrying 2 straps around, so that could be a factor. So I do think that's probably going to happen. Is Bray next? I do think Bray Wyatt's going to be back in WWE. Timeline, I don't know, but I think that it's probably gonna happen. He didn't go anywhere else in the year that he's been off and gone. I think that's probably significant. And then now it seems with what seems to be positive PR coming out of WWE right now with the leadership change, I think it's probably inevitable that he does wind up back there. I don't know if it's now, don't know if it's Rumble, don't know when, but I mean, would you guys agree that Bray's probably destined to return?
I think so. He's very creative, and Hunter's very much aware of that. Trust me. But at the same time, you said something too. If they can wait that long, I know Rumble seems like a long time away. It's 6 months from now or whatever it is. But at the same time, can you imagine that reaction he would get coming out there?
I don't think you hold him till Rumble, Issa. Just because I said Rumble just as throwing it out there. But I think with Rumble, I think we all kind of assume that's going to be kind of a time mark for Cody Rhodes to get back. Who knows what other surprises you could pull out there? I think with Bray, you still have beyond Clash at the Castle, you have another Saudi show, and you need to load the marquee up there. I got to think Hunter's going to put emphasis on getting Survivor Series back to meaning something. I've seen a lot of Twitter booking of could he take the War Games, which he of course brought back and put in NXT. Could you provide the War Games in a Survivor Series? And they also still have the big Day 1 show. They want to try to market New Year's Day, kicking off the new year with them, and they have a premium live event there. So I think there's plenty of other times where you could use marquee return names like Bray Wyatt, or whether he's Bray Wyatt or The Fiend, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I agree. I think Bray Wyatt comes back, and if I have him in a position to come back, I will rush it. There's a lot of wrestling between now and the Royal Rumble. I do think the Royal Rumble is an exciting pay-per-view to just think about, just because of Triple H and how many calls he could make. I don't think he's going to give us everything he's got in the first few weeks, so I think we might see some surprises upcoming. But yeah, I will bring Bray Wyatt back, as soon as possible. It seems like he's putting a lot of effort into making secondary titles feel important again. And there's a lot of people that Bray Wyatt could have a feud with right now that could elevate them. So I will bring him back before the Rumble. And yeah, I think adding Cross to this match is super interesting. You can have Roman lose without being pinned. We have seen Drew McIntyre and Roman Reigns so many times with the same result. Roman always beats Drew. So I think adding something to the equation makes the feud interesting again. So I'm excited about it.
Well, and it's very interesting because you just said you could have Roman lose. Roman could lose without being pinned, but that's interesting because you have Roman Reigns who's on this incredible streak, so you're very delicate about what you do with him. But do you want to pin a returning Karrion Kross, or you just thrust it? The last time I
was pinning Drew McIntyre, LaBar.
Pinning Drew McIntyre. Yeah, I'm just saying. Yeah, there's a lot of different things here that could happen. There's just a lot. But then Drew, who's supposed to be the, the European home territory guy, like there's a lot of things there that come to play. So that's fascinating. Issa, if Bray comes back, do you want original rocking chair Bray Wyatt? Do you want Fiend, or do you want some other new iteration of Bray Wyatt?
I really, really love the Fiend, and I'm willing to put whatever happened with the Fiend aside just to see a real run with the Fiend. I want the Fiend to be used occasionally. So probably the original Bray Wyatt with the Fiend coming back when necessary, kind of like an ego that he calls in when he needs it to. I also did enjoy Firefly Funhouse Bray. So I mean, Bray Wyatt is just so genius at what he does that regardless of what they do with him, it's gonna hit. It's just a matter of are they going to give him some justice with the booking.
Sure.
Yep.
Fun times ahead, that's for sure. All right, let's go ahead and jump into AEW Dynamite. It is the Quake by the Lake, coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. Fun fact, boys and girls, would you like to guess? We'll do an over-under. Would you like to guess, in the history of modern history of documentation, going back to the mid-1800s, how many earthquakes, how much seismic activity the state of Minnesota has encountered? Jimmy, I'll go with you. Out of all the numbers, and never mind, you're going back to, I'm talking 200 years here. How many earthquakes do you think have been recorded ever in Minnesota?
Well, you said since you're going back 200 years, that's the number I'm going to take. 2. 1 per century, if that.
Issa, how many earthquakes have been documented?
I'm gonna say 3.
You guys are really small. It's not quite that few, but still in 200 plus years, 20. Minnesota earthquake.
Really?
Minnesota has been one of the lowest occurrence levels of earthquakes in the United States. A total of 20 small earthquakes have been documented since about 1860. So there's your seismic activity history lesson for the state of Minnesota.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I try to bring another element to the podcast.
There you go. Historic facts. Historic facts. There you go.
That's right. All right. Well, here's some historic facts. We start off with a coffin match. There have been 2 the history of AEW prior to tonight. Both have been won by Darby Allin. So Darby's coming in 2-0. Darby Allin, coffin match expert in AEW, up against Brody King. And right out the gate, Darby has a surprise attack on Brody out of the shadows. Uses a skateboard on Brody that's got thumbtacks on it. This immediately results in blood all over Brody King. Brody does a dive off the top. He misses. Darby goes through a table. We get lights out. Here's the House of Black. They appear. They have the numbers game. But then as they go to open up the coffin, Sting pops out of the coffin. Takes out Buddy Matthews, and then Sting. Nice little touch here. Because he got the miss from Black, remember? And now he's got like that blackened eye where he got the miss. I thought that was a nice touch. Commentary puts on it. He tosses the bat to Malachi Black, saying, kind of, come on. Black backs off, leaves the ringside area, and finally Darby takes the chain that was Brody's chain, hangs and chokes him from the ropes, and then Brody ultimately falls into the coffin for Darby to get the victory. Moves to 3-0 in coffin matches. Issa, I'll start with you. This was a bloody, violent opener in this feud between Darby and Brody. What did this do for you? Where did you land for this one?
I love this match. I thought AEW started out hot today. I don't know if maybe the booking of other shows is lighting a fire under TK, but I really enjoyed tonight's episode of Dynamite, and I love the way that it started. I'm gonna nitpick at that commercial break, like 5 minutes into it. Like we see like all of this action is so chaotic. Brody King is bleeding right away, and then we go to commercial 5 minutes into the start of the show. I just couldn't. You could have pushed that out a little bit more. Sting popping out of that coffin. I love that moment. I wasn't expecting it. It took me by surprise. I couldn't figure out how they were going to make it. I had a feeling Darby was winning this match with his history coffin matches, as you mentioned. I didn't know how they were going to do it, and it was believable, right? Because when you're looking at Darby and Brody King and their history and their prior matches, it just doesn't seem like Darby's ever going to get one on him. But the way that they went on about it, it was excellently executed. I just thought the show started out with a bang. And personally, I didn't think it slowed down after that. So it was great.
Jimmy, where's your stock in the House of Black right now? Are you still buying into them, or where are they at?
I like their presentation. I like the way they come out and that sort of thing. And I don't think tonight hurt them that much because Darby Allin is believable as a smaller guy with a fight. He showed that tonight. And having Sting by his side helping him obviously is a big help too. But to your question about the House of Black, I'm okay with them so far. I kind of didn't like the fact that Malachi backed off, even though Sting threw the bat to him and he backed off. I would have liked to see maybe Sting outsmart him in some form or fashion. That would have made more sense. But other than that, I don't think they're losing too much stock in the House of Black because they're presented well, I think, other than the fact that they kind of, backed off from Sting even with a bat.
I'm going to jump forward. I normally try to do things in order of they happen on the show, but I just feel like it's just better just to kind of tack this one on. It appeared later. We got a promo later backstage, a pre-tape promo from Miro, who, of course, has directed comments at the House of Black. And quickly into his comments, Julia Hart appears. Of course, she is part of the House of Black now. And she even basically is, I'm paraphrasing, it basically just says, embrace the House of Black, come to our side, do what I did, embrace them. She touches Miro's face. He says there's only one woman who's worthy of touching the Redeemer's face. And then he basically turns his back and faces the other way and just continues to note that he is coming for the House of Black. This is interesting because, I mean, we know that we know that there's something there between he and House of Black. If you follow the news, there was a news story this past week of Miro on social media, maybe questioning AEW's booking and the broad spectrum of talent. Jimmy, what did you make of this? And just for all the context of what I said, what did this promo do for you for Miro and the House of Black?
Well, it is continuing to plant seeds, but at the same time, I kind of see where Miro's coming from. Here's a guy who left one company, went to the other, was probably promised this and that. I don't know. I can't speak to that. But at the same time, you have high expectations. And then you are used very infrequently in ring, and you're doing a lot of backstage promos, which are actually pretty good promos. He's actually a pretty good talker when he gets the opportunity. And I'm not enthralled with the House of Black. It almost feels like I'm going back on what I said earlier, but as much as I'm interested in the House of Black, I'm not interested in this rivalry because I want to see more from the House of Black before these two guys or these two, separate entities get it on.
He said it feels like I like this. I like him speaking as the Redeemer, but still up to this point, Rusev reached much higher heights than Miro did.
Oh yeah, I agree. But I personally, Miro has had one of my favorite title reigns in AEW, and it's a little bit sad to see that they haven't done much, with him after that TNT title run, because I really, really enjoyed it. Now here tonight, the one thing that I just took out of this, it wasn't even House of Black, it's just how bad I want to see CJ join him in AEW. As soon as Julia showed up and touched his face, I was doing a live stream and I said, who is she touching him like this? Like, somebody get CJ in here right now. So I think adding her to the equation could really, really make this interesting, especially with the Julia Hart addition to the House of Black. I don't know that she still feels like she fits in. And I feel like adding the figure of CJ and maybe her, having something to do in this feud will also help Julia Hart feel like she belongs with the House of Black, because she still feels a little like she doesn't belong to me.
It's funny you said that, Issa. I did not start watching live at 8 o'clock. That's why I didn't do really any live tweeting. I started a little bit later, so I, of course, was using commercials to as best I could, because we have picture-in-picture, so I'm trying to see some things in the match. But so I'm hitting the fast forward button to get myself caught up, and so then we get to the Miro promo, and before I could even stop the fast forwarding, because I want to hear what he's saying, my fast forward skipped through, and I see a blonde walk into the screen. I went, "Holy shit!" Because I thought CJ finally had showed up, and I'm like, "Oh, it's Julia." And then. And I listened.
Yeah, I think we were all expecting CJ, and I'm hoping that she just ends up joining him soon.
Me too. I have my Happy Lana Day shirt waiting.
There you go.
To put on for the right time. All right, so that's that. That's all things House of Black tonight for AEW Dynamite's Quake by the Lake. We move into a tornado tag match. We'll go to the referee here in a moment. We got Andrade, El Idolo, and Roosh, and commentary does a nice job during this entrance. Given some context of these two men, first time tagging in AEW, but a very long history of dominance in Mexico. So well done here. I believe it was by Excalibur. They're up against Penta, one of my favorites. I don't even know if I got to gush over Penta. Penta was here just a few weeks ago with us at IWC Wrestling, and just to see this guy, not gonna, he's still Penta. Saw him behind the curtain. He's still Penta, and boy, did I love that. He's an intense cat. I like it. I love it. That's my mark out moment. Penta and his brother Ray Phoenix, the Lucha Brothers, up against Andrade and Rush. Tornado tag. Jimmy, this just means that all 4 men, well, you don't need to do any tag. Everything's basically legal. It's all just good.
It's funny you said that, because while I was taking my notes there, here's a tornado tag. Insert your own ref joke here. AEW ref joke here, because so why is this match any different than any other tag match in AEW other than FTR? But anyway, going into this match, I knew what to expect, and I got what I was expecting: a fun, high spot filled match with a lot of big spots and stuff like that. It was entertaining, and that's what it was meant to be from the start. And people could say, well, they did this and they did too much, and no, that's what it was meant to be. It was meant to be entertaining. It was meant to be fun, and that's how I just sat back, enjoyed, and just watched.
Yeah, I'll be honest here, and there's the joke there, right? Obviously, there's a lot of tornado tags in AEW. I'll be honest, I wish that they would. First off, tornado tag was the right call for these 4 guys. Because it allowed them, and if somebody's going why, and Jimmy backed me up here as the rules expert, it allowed how fast paced their offense and the transitions. It allowed it all to happen, but it all happened legally under the rules versus having to break pace and tag and get a legal man in and this and that. So I thought I'd almost, Issa, prefer AEW just be a little more liberal and just name more tag matches under these rules, because then I'll just go, okay, just throw out tag rules and I'll accept it. Don't tell me we're gonna have a tag match and when the referee's trying to enforce something that's just gonna be thrown out anyways.
Yeah, it will make the booking and the referees look a lot better, right? Because we always had that issue in AEW. I always find myself questioning who the legal man is when they do a regular rule tag match. I love this match. As somebody who fell in love with wrestling, watching Lucha Brothers and Lucha Libre style match, this was everything. I also had great appreciation for AEW giving us a very hardcore match, followed by a high-flying Lucha match, followed by a squash match. There's something for everyone in AEW, and I really, really appreciate that. I have to give a major props on the mask spot. I am a big advocate of don't try to remove somebody's mask, and the way that they did this, where he had to take off his own mask in order to save his tag partner, I thought it was very well executed and beautifully done. All 4 of these men are so talented. Happy to see Andrade and Rush get the win here, especially since they're moving on to the trios tournament. I like to see a showcase, and I like to see them doing more with Andrade. This was A+ for me.
Yeah, and great job wrapping it up there right there. Andrade does get the pin on Rey Fenix using the hammerlock DDT. So a much needed win for an Andrade in the AEW circles. Issa, this is not a super chat, but I see it in there. A little Spanish for you. What are we saying here?
He says, hi, Issa. I miss you, my queen. Thank you, Sergio.
Oh, very good. Very
nice.
Good. We're a bilingual show. Yeah, very fun, man. And I mean, good call there. This is this is you're right, something for everybody. It was definitely the buffet was on display tonight. In your wrestling fandom. Super chat from Bear, $5. What do you guys think of breaking news that Bray Wyatt is returning to WWE? Can you also address Tony Khan's backstage behavior towards AEW talent? Well, Bear, first off, on the breaking news, I mean, are you unless I'm about to say, unless Bray has flat out said he's coming back. I mean, I know he had a kind of a cryptic post that people were trying to interpret, but I wouldn't say that is breaking news that he's returning. And to the Tony Khan's backstage behavior, I've seen what you're referencing. Bear, my opinion, before I toss it to my colleagues here, you have to be very, very careful on any report that talks about whenever it's addressing the management and the bookers, alleged negative behavior towards talent, because what ends up what can happen, especially in AEW that has a huge roster, if one person or even 2 or even 3, but it's a huge roster, are a little disgruntled, not being used as much as they were, not being used as much as they think they should be, plans changing, so they get their storyline gets pushed back.
Right.
That could just be 2 or 3 people in a very large roster. If they're just disgruntled and they just are the sources that go to the publication that reports such, it paints this light that Tony's. But when in reality, 40 out of 50 people are feeling pretty good about what's going on, or you know what I mean. So unless you're there, or unless even if I want to pick up the phone and call Wardlow and say, what do you think of this? Well, based upon how Wardlow's being treated right now, I don't think he's going to have any complaint about Tony Khan. So, it's like you never know, because everybody has their own agenda, their own story, their own situation. Jimmy, you're nodding your head. You've been backstage for many, many years. I mean, that to me just seems like that's how this works, is that if one person could be upset and they could try to tell their own narrative.
That's the exact thing. They tell their own narrative, their own story. They kind of, I hate to put it this way, fudge the numbers to kind of get what they want, or it's an excuse or reasoning behind why something is not going the way they were hoping it would go. You know what I mean? And well, again, like you said, I'm not there to witness it, but I don't see that being an issue with the majority of the talent there. I just think there's some that are having an issue, and I think that with it relating to Tony Khan, and all I've heard from people who deal with him is nothing but positive. So I guess you can't please all the people all the time. The old saying.
Agreed.
Man Cave Sessions, Issa, damn girl. All right. Sergio, no super chat, but Justin, what's in the Absolute LaBar? Absolute and Sprite. Absolute vodka and Sprite Zero if you want to be watching your calories and your sugar.
That's all he ever drinks every single time.
I'm a very simple guy. What do we got here? Super Chat Keith, kind of a separate complaint, but AEW Dark is starting to have more promos and storylines, but never discussed on Dynamite. I know limited time, but still. That's the balance, right? They just have different shows, different properties. It's trying to create that. But I mean, look, Rampage is the next most important thing, right? Because it's on, it's on cable. So
television.
I even think I don't know if we'll get to everything they announced for Dynamite. It's so much, but I even think just some of the things they announced for Dynamite this Friday, it feels like they're trying to put a little bit more. Brian Danielson's going to return and speak and talk about whatever he wants to talk about ahead of a match he's going to have in his return next Wednesday. Another match we'll get to in a second. Like I feel like there was a little bit more. There's starting to be a little bit more emphasis put into Rampage. Dynamite still is where you got to give the goods, but they need to get Rampage up. That's the number one. Dark on YouTube, Elevation. Kind of just bonus at that point.
Agreed.
King Rail, maybe wishful thinking. What's the possibility of an NXT invasion angle or release superstar invasion angle coming? I'll say this, guys. I think that we saw with Raw this past week. Triple H is certainly just more open to let it play out, let it slow burn. I think kind of maybe an NXT invasion someday, maybe not right now, but I think someday it's probably inevitable. They probably tap into that well.
That would be fun, especially if Triple H is in charge of the main roster and his old buddy HBK is the one who leads the charge. NXT, hey, Hunter, I know you started this thing, but you took it in the wrong direction. I'm the one who saved NXT, and I'm going to show you that I'm going to save Raw and SmackDown as well with this talent that I built up.
Yeah. The best part about this is that a lot of things now feel possible, right? Before we were just fantasy booking and a lot of the things we didn't think creative will go there. Now I personally think a lot of things are possible in WWE television. So I could see that happening.
I'll even go as far to say this, because you're right. It's funny you said that phrase. That's the phrase that I've been kind of living on for the last couple of weeks, is that anything feels possible. It's what makes Mondays and Fridays really exciting right now. I'll even go as far to say, I'm not going to say this year. I'm not going to say next year. I'm not going to say it's with Raw or SmackDown. Maybe it's NXT. Maybe it's what. I would go as far to say I don't think it is completely off the reservation that maybe one day you see a WWE property do something with an AEW. And that could be as blunt as Crazy Forbidden Door Super Show, or that could be as subtle as a Ric Flair type of special indie show where Triple H signs off and Tony Khan signs off to few select talent from each of their locker rooms being on the same card.
I can see more.
Yeah. I think that is in the realm of possibility in the future years, potentially.
No, absolutely. Like I said, that the latter half of what you said there, I think, is more feasible at this time right now. Anyway.
A WWE locker room star, an AEW locker room star. Jimmy Korderas flies down from Toronto. He's the ref. I think it's all possible.
with the right amount of braces and Band-Aids.
I thought you were gonna say the right amount of zeros on the check.
Well, that helps too. Yeah, in U.S. funds too, even better.
Yeah, right. Better conversion rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, up next we see a backstage, a pretty lengthy backstage by AEW standards. The Young Bucks go into the locker room where they see the Dark Order members hanging with Hangman Page, and basically Matt Jackson speaking for the team, speaking for he and his brother, thanking Page for helping them out last week after Adam Cole and company turned on him, and then proceeding to apologize for their actions of the past. And he really details a lot of history dating back to Page winning the title, and just just money got crazy, money got to our heads, crazy, this and that, and need to get back to our roots. And basically they ask him to be their partner for the trios tournament, and Page says, he'd like to, he appreciates what they're saying, he'd like to, but he's going to be loyal to the Dark Order because they were there all those times when the Young Bucks weren't and turned their back. He's going to be loyal to the Dark Order. Hangman Page even says that he's not going to be part of the trios tournament. Dark Order is, but he's going to be in their corner. And so that maybe the Young Bucks need to go find somebody who didn't turn their backs on them. And the Young Bucks, of course, leave very distraught. Issa, 2 words. Kenny Omega?
Yes, I mean, I guess we said it differently, but we meant the same thing, right? I've been talking to you guys about how I'd rather see Kenny Omega be part of the singles division, so I did think that Hangman Page was going to kind of join them here. This was a lengthy backstage segment for my liking. I wish they would have just shortened it just a little bit, but it built up that anticipation that Hangman was going to say yes, and he said no. So we'll see where it goes. It keeps you watching. The whole thing that you have to do is keep them tuning in next week, and now we need to figure out who the Young Bucks are going to team up with. It could be a return, it could be Adam Cole, we don't know, but the fact that we don't know makes it that much more interesting. So we'll see what happens.
Jimmy, as a referee, do you like the concept of a trios tournament and trios champion?
When done right, and if you use the rules to the advantage and use your referees correctly as rules enforcers and people that someone that the heels outsmart, as opposed to make look like the old cliche blind man with the tapping cane and the whole bit. I'm okay with trios matches, like I said, as long as they're done correctly and you can have that breakdown moment going into the finish and that sort of thing. But I'm just fearful that these are going to turn into what we saw earlier in the night in a tornado match, and that's going to be more of what we see in this tournament, is my only concern.
Yeah, so we'll stay tuned and see how this plays out. But obviously, there's been a lot of rumor of Kenny Omega again. I mean, and certainly WWE, AEW needs. They got some people that have been on the sideline. They certainly need to get some of these people back. Tease for the rest of this podcast. But so if Kenny Omega getting back, we'll see if that's in fact how it plays out. Up next, we get Jungle Boy on commentary. Luchasaurus going to have what's going to be a squash match against Anthony Henry. That's exactly what it is. And then after that, Christian's backstage, cutting a promo, doesn't want to be out there in front of the disgusting people in Minnesota. Jungle Boy quickly removes himself from the commentary desk as he knows where Christian's at backstage, goes to attack him. Luchasaurus follows up with it as well. So continuing to build the blood feud that is Jimmy with Jungle Boy and Christian Cage. You know Christian better than any of us do. I got to think this is building to one hell of a payoff match that Christian Cage is going to lay it all out there.
No, absolutely. And I think Christian knows good business, and he sees that Jungle Boy is over right now. And I think he's going to do business the right way, whether it's in their first encounter or whether they have a series of matches where at the end, Christian eventually elevates Jungle Boy to the next level and puts him over. I mean, like we talked about before, you can get over without going over. But I think in this case, Jungle Boy in this feud at the end of it needs to go over as well as get over. And Christian is a guy who understands that, and it's not so much about the win for him as it is about the performance.
Yeah. Issa, thoughts on what we're eventually headed to?
Yeah, it's showing a different side of Jungle Boy. I appreciate that. I love the shot of him like jumping at Christian and security, catching him literally mid-air. I thought that was super cool the way that it was shot. But also, I think the security guard at AEW is the worst job on the face on the earth, and I don't recommend that to anybody.
real quick here, super chat. Keith, going back to the Bucks and Hangman segment, he says, was hearing ramble on with the Bucks and Hangman. It was a little long, but in their mind, I know it's supposed to be this big story that's been unfolding over the last couple of years, basically since the inception of AEW. So I mean, I guess I get what they're trying, why they put the time towards it, but I do agree it did kind of linger on. Hey, real quick here, Jungle Boy. So he gets up out of the commentary desk. Something to note here tonight. Jim Ross there for the entire show. They've been doing this thing recently where Jim Ross comes out kind of as like an infused energy for the second hour, but they had him out there the entire time. I'm wondering, I guess maybe Issa, because they try to build this as like one of their specials, this because it gets a custom name.
Right.
I'm guessing that's why they had him out there the whole time.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. But next week seems to also be a TV special, so we'll see if we're going to have him there all 2 hours. But I noticed that as well.
Yeah, next week. What are they? They're based around what, dragons?
Something about Game of Thrones, I think, or something like that.
Rather view Game of Thrones people.
Yeah.
I tried. My dad was real into it. I tried. He gave me this is like 10 years ago. He gave me like the DVDs and stuff, and my now wife, we tried. We sat down and we like watched like a couple episodes, and like the DVD thing had like the big had a big poster that unfolded. It was like the family tree of like how all the different castles and families and everybody whatever. And I'm like sitting there watching, and we're like, all right, so he's related to she. He's banging her. But I tried to keep score. I lost track.
No, when you got to take notes, it's different when you're taking notes to review a show like we do. But when you were taking note, you have to take notes watching a television program. Nah.
Sorry, I gave up. Maybe one day I'll revisit, but I gave up.
There you go.
All right, we get Jay Lethal, Sonya Dutt, and Santam Singh. They're in the ring, cutting a little promo, talking some smack on Wardlow and what they did to him last Saturday at the Battle of the Belts. Talking about putting Wardlow through the table. Jay Lethal says, either defend that title again to me, or we're just going to come and take it. Wardlow not going to put up with that. He comes out, says, oh yeah, I'll defend this title again, but tonight I'm just whipping all three of y'all's ass. But before he makes it to the ring, FTR decides to come and give him a little help to equal the numbers. And all I could think, he says, I'm watching Wardlow come to the ring, FTR flanking him, and then I'm hearing the crowd talk about three of the most over baby faces right now that AEW has produced.
Yeah, and the fact that this relationship started as the pinnacle, and they were all heels, remember? And the fact that they're still together as three of the most over baby faces, and they did it separately. It took me a second to put two and two together. When FTR came out, like, it took me a second to go back. Oh yeah, they go back with the pinnacle. Wardlow is a star. You know, I say this every week. I absolutely love him. A little bit of a weird take here, but a lot of people didn't watch Battle of the Belts. So if you're tuning in just for this show and you didn't tune in on Saturday, which is going to be the difference, like, we know the numbers that Battle of the Belts did, and we know what Dynamite does. So there's going to be about half of your audience that didn't watch it. They're going to feel a little lost here.
Okay, and before I toss to Jimmy, excellent point, Issa. I thought here, because they actually did this later in the for the Ricky Starks match, I believe, they interrupted the entrances on television to show you a little recap package of why we're here. This was where I thought they needed to implement a WWE method of have Lethal, Sonya, and Singh get in the ring. I know WWE sometimes overdoes it, but do the whole, hey, run the video footage on the Tron.
Right.
Show what they did to Wardlow last Saturday. I absolutely agree. Just based upon the factual numbers of how many people did watch Saturday versus how many watched Dynamite, you're right. There is a disconnect. So I do think before Wardlow comes out and he's just going to automatically just grant another defense to Jay Lethal, why is he doing that? I think that's an excellent point.
I was unable to watch on Saturday, and I see Jay Lethal coming out. Obviously, he doesn't have the title, so my first thought is like, okay, so Wardlow, obviously successfully defended. So why are they still talking smash? Then he goes to mention they put him through the table. I would appreciate some kind of insert to see the actual visual of it.
That's one of my concerns. Sorry to cut you off there, Justin. Sometimes with the presentation of AEW is they assume that all their fans go either online or everything and check out the results and read what happened if they didn't see it and stuff like that. And a lot of times that doesn't happen. Like you said, their main audience is Wednesday nights. And, to steal a WWE method, why not replay what happened? Give us a little taste of what happened. So, because if the numbers hold true to form, half the audience didn't witness it, like you said. So, it only makes sense to keep them informed. At least have the commentary team say, this past Saturday at Battle of the Belts, this happened. So this is why they are together.
Jimmy, I agree. And I want to be transparent with the audience. And first of all, I'm going to start with the compliment to Tony Khan. Tony Khan makes himself very approachable to the wrestling media. And I give him full credit for that, because that's not always a desirable thing to do. But he does. And that was actually a conversation he and I had. It's been a couple of years at this point, so it's whatever. But I had a conversation with him, and kind of the basis of it was a particular story that was being told at the time. There were elements of the story that were meant to help amplify the intensity of the conflict, but you would have had to watch some of the other programming they have, whether it was TV or YouTube. Mm-hmm. And he and I just kind of had a very friendly debate in this conversation. And I just said, well, I'm just not feeling it as much when I watch Dynamite, because I didn't catch everything live in real time or whatever. And he made his points, and fair to him. And again, the guy's got a company he's running, so fair to him. And I just compliment him the fact that he engaged we had this debate with each other, which again, he does not have to make time for little old me. So I want to say that I'm complimenting him that he did this. But it's the basis of what I thought then, and I'm with you again, Jimmy, now, that I still think there's a balance that he needs to figure out of the mediums, of the distribution of these shows. And again, they did their best effort later with Ricky Starks and Aaron Solo, which we'll get to in a second. But I thought here, no disrespect to Ricky Starks and Aaron Solo, but Wardlow is bigger than all those guys. And so if you've got your guy Wardlow, who's got people chanting his name, and there's this funny kind of Goldberg parallels happening. If you put Wardlow through a table, you need to be blasting that all over the place that happened. Both for the sympathy of Wardlow and for the credit of Lethal Sanye and Satnam Singh. So, I don't know. Interesting choices that they made or didn't make here.
Agreed.
So we'll see where that goes. But there was a nice money shot that ends with FTR and Wardlow all holding their gold up, and the fans really popping with these three guys. We get Ricky Starks versus Aaron Solo. Again, they do the video package. Watch it matter. Starks does get a win here. Pretty nice ending with the finish, the spear. After that, we get Nick Camarado and the rest of the factory coming out. Numbers eventually too great for Starks, but he escapes the crowd. So Ricky Starks, a babyface project, Jimmy. It seems like they're really starting to get behind.
Yeah, and the crowd seems to be getting behind him too, and that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest factor that you need. You need the crowd behind this guy, and they are getting behind the guy. The only thing I will complain a little bit about is, again, more aftermath, which seems to happen after every match in AEW. You talk about stuff getting done too much. We see a little bit too much of that happening. And in this case, the aftermath with the chair and all that stuff looked a little sloppy. It didn't come up. I'm not saying it should look smooth as silk, but at the same time, it didn't look good. The aftermath didn't come off well. But as far as Ricky Starks as a babyface, it seems to be working.
Issa, are you in on Ricky Starks as a babyface?
All in. Absolutely in. Love Ricky Starks. Didn't like the visual seeing him run away from them at the end, but I mean, he's all by himself now, I guess. We gotta follow the story and see where it goes. But overall, yeah, I think Ricky Starks is a star. He's got it. So we'll see where this goes.
Fun quick backstage. We see the Gun Club. We see Billy Gunn not happy with his sons. They get interrupted by Stokely Hathaway with calling him Grandpa Ass, which I got a big pop on social media. And he proceeds to give his business cards to the younger Guns, and Billy chases them away. Fun setting up against stuff that's happening on Rampage and other shows. But the Grandpa Ass seemed to just go viral. Issa.
Sorry, I just want to say really quickly.
Grandpa Ass to Jimmy. There we go.
No, sorry. No, that guy should wish they looked as good as Grandpa Ass does at his age. Anyways, never mind.
Issa.
Sorry, Issa, go ahead.
Grandpa Ass.
I loved it. I popped for it. I thought it was great. I thought it was great. I know afterwards we see some other things, and it was weird because I know that we seen Parker, and you'll talk about it in a second. We see him in dark, but he hasn't been introduced in AEW, so it was just a very weird way to introduce him. And he's gonna be in the trios tournament, and we're just now finding out about it. So I there's like I saw Jimmy making the, let's just there's some things that just needs to be tied up a little bit in the presentation. This is one of them because Parker just looks so impressive next to all of these guys, and you just debut him so lacklusterish.
Yeah, so the jump to another backstage, the best friends, Orange Cassidy and them, again, approached by Ari Daivari. He's got his, what are they called? The Truth Busters, Ari Daivari, Slim J, and Parker Boudreau. We'll get back to Parker here in a second. Ari trying to kind of lure Orange Cassidy, and Orange Cassidy has no interest. So, you're gonna regret not being part of us. Announced again for Rampage this Friday, Parker Boudreau is going to be in a debut singles match. Parker Boudreau, we haven't Ari Daivari, of course. Interesting they did this tonight. I believe the Daivaris are from Minnesota. I believe are from Minnesota,
Yeah, I think you're right.
So that's a little interesting tie. So kind of cool here. Parker Boudreau. This guy, if you look at him, a lot of comparisons have been made. He looks like a young Brock Lesnar. He was, of course, in the WWE system, got released, budget cuts. Tony Khan and his company pick him up. This might be one of the most interesting things that would make me check out my DVR Rampage is to see this guy, to see his headshot, to see his debut singles match. I mean, because Jimmy, I'm a big believer. I've told you this, Jimmy. I'm a big believer in the airport test. If the guy can walk or girl can walk through the airport and get me to turn my head, they've got my attention. I know once the bell rings, we need to see certain things. They got to be able to apply a few headlocks. They got to be able to do some basics. But I'm a big believer in the airport test.
No, and you're absolutely right. And I think he does pass the airport test. But that's the thing. You're going to get people to want to tune in and check him out. It's now up to him to deliver. Whether it is not, I'm not saying he should go out there and do a twisting, burning 450 hammer Phoenix splash. He needs to get the audience, the fans invested in him as a talent in the ring and also as a person, as a character. And hopefully he can do that.
Issa, any evaluation on or expectation, I should say, on Parker?
No, I can't wait to see what he does. I don't think we got to see a lot of him in the way that he was booked in NXT for that short period of time with Joe Gacy. So I'm excited to just see him on his own.
I have a feeling based upon it, just his appearance alone, he might be one that, of course, he was, again, released under budget cuts and under previous management. I got a feeling he's one that Triple H wish he could get a mulligan for, and that if he becomes available again, we'll try to get back into the system. If possible. We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay, up next, we got our women's match here. Jade Cargill up against Madison Rayne. Jade Cargill, of course, our TBS champion, excuse me. So Madison Rayne, she is the most experienced opponent that Jade has ever been in the ring with. Jimmy, I'm going to toss to you. I don't know necessarily who or why. I don't know if it was the vast experience that Madison has over Jade. I don't know if it was just miscommunication. This was not the best Jade Cargill showing. She gets the win. She counters Madison's cross reign and gets into her the jaded, I think they call it the slam. But this was one of the more exposed matches of Jade Cargill's young career.
I hate to agree with you, but I do, and it showed. And it takes two to tango. And I don't want to say that Madison Rayne should eat some of the blame here, but at the same time, maybe there was a miscommunication. Maybe they weren't on the same page, but something was not clicking with these two ladies. And they did work hard. There were times where it looked a little snug in there, and maybe that was it. Maybe it was a personal thing, but it didn't come off. Again, I hate to use the word smooth, but it just looked like they did not have that chemistry together. And this was an opportunity for Jade Cargill to really show a little bit more, especially with someone like Madison Rayne, who has now got multitasks over there, as she's also got some behind the scenes roles as well. But I think a little bit of a miss here.
Well, and Issa, to Jimmy's point, he's referenced smooth a couple times, and I think what he's trying to get at is there's a fine line between you don't want to look so smooth that it is too choreographed. You want to have a bit of a real life struggle, but there's a line between a real life struggle and just being on different pages, and that's what it kind of felt like tonight. Is that this was a little bit.
I had this match for me was up and down, up and down. I did see some moments for Jade here or there, right? But Jade just looks it. Then when you start paying close attention to her in-ring work, that's when you can see a couple of these misses that you guys are talking about. At the same time, this is her 36th match ever. You know, and she, there is no performance center here, as you know, Tony Khan says. So we're watching her grow in front of our eyes. And yeah, I wish it would have been a little bit better, but at the same time, I think it's incredible what she's doing given the experience that she's had.
Well, and yeah, I mean, again, Jade Cargill looks like $1 million. She is she's an incredible looking athlete, performer. But I think to what you just said there about how the only so many reps, this is the double-edged sword of AEW's business model for the talent. It's a very attractive thing for the talent. I know that, especially talent that have previously worked in WWE, that they don't have to work house shows, that they're not on the road 4 and 5 days a week every week, that they are, you know, they're on the road for Dynamite, and most times Rampage is taped, so you're on the road 1 day a week, maybe 2 if you have a pay-per-view. But while you have that nice peace of mind that you don't have to be on the road all week and you can go do other projects and what have you, the double-edged sword is that, you know, if you are in WWE and you do a house show loop and you get reps in front of live crowds that's not televised, that's where people like Jade Cargill probably would benefit.
Right.
And she's not getting that.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, it's a completely different thing to be in a gym with a ring and working out there and getting your reps in there, as opposed to being, like you said, Justin, in front of a live crowd, because a live crowd at the end of the day is the people who are telling you if you're doing it right or wrong.
Yeah, right. Robert Martinez, super chat, Jade is so green. Madison was calling that match like Randy Savage.
Did she even say, ooh, yeah, one time?
I think Madison Rain's a great acquisition for them to have, but this was, you know, it did stick out. Post-match, Athena jumps in the ring. She attacks at Jade. So there's that. So she's certainly calling her shot to be the next challenger for Jade. Sticking with the women's division backstage, we see backstage and find out Chris Statlander, she's hurt. So that is going to promote Toni Storm as the number one contender for her, you know, Thunderstorm partner, Thunder Rosa's AEW Women's title, and so that's eventually going to happen. So that's where we're at with the AEW Women's division. Chris Statlander hurt, Toni Storm elevated. Toni Storm's in action next Wednesday, but her versus Thunder Rosa inevitably going to happen. Maybe it's all out in September. But
yep, and don't let the time spot fool you, because they gave more time to the main event. We're still in the exact same spot right before the main event.
Exactly. Exactamundo, as they say. And, you know, I like the fact that they explained the reason why these two are going to face each other eventually and why she is now the number one contender. They explained it to the audience so they understand. I'm just glad that they didn't use the terminology, can these two still coexist?
I see somebody in the chat making a comparison to Jade Goldberg, and I actually personally have always said that I would rather see Jade come out and squash people. I don't want to see her have long technical matches, and maybe they're just trying to show what she can or can't do. But Jade looked like she can kick all of these women's asses on the women's roster in AEW and the men's. So why not just have her out there and let her get a couple of squash matches? We don't need to see her try to put on a big technical matches. We have other females in that roster to do that.
Yeah,
I would agree. I agree.
No, I agree too.
All right, well, you talk about time. So they end up going into their main event match with still about 30 minutes to go. And I was happy with that because I was like, all right, well, we're going to get some time given to two veteran performers. Also, I figured whatever the big hubbub is, it's going to end this. Hopefully, we're starting this early enough to where we won't be rushing. That's obviously been a big complaint of mine, at least, is that they just try to cram too much, Jimmy's pound in a bag comparison. But we end up rushing the ending.
Yeah.
So the fact they were starting this early, I was like, all right, let's make sure we get enough time for things to breathe here. Lionheart, Chris Jericho, battling Jon Moxley. This is for the interim AEW World Title. I'll run through some of the highlights and then we'll talk about the fallout. Very early on in the opening minutes, Jericho rips out Moxley's earring, and of course, the cartilage in your ear, that you're gonna bleed. So it was a way to get some blood without having to do any blade jobs, but the blood is all over the place. I don't know. Issa, I don't know if you wear jewelry. Jimmy, I don't know if you have a wedding ring. I'm big on. I don't wear. I mean, I have the ring on now, but like,
no.
If I'm golfing, if I'm swimming, if I'm doing anything physical, I don't wear jewelry. I don't want to lose it. I don't want it to be a distraction to my performance. Why the hell?
I don't do anything without my earrings. Nothing without my earrings.
Nothing?
I feel naked without them. Actually,
Even in the ring.
Yeah, I can't.
Wow.
Yeah, no. I even work out with earrings on. So
I see. I never wore my ring my wedding ring in the ring while I was reffing because I always figured, what happens if I jam my finger and it swells up? I'll never get that thing off, and it could cause some more damage than need be. But that spot kind of made me cringe a little bit. Let's put it that way. It makes you think, why would someone wear jewelry in the ring in a match, especially wearing a ring in your ear, even on a side headlock? I would imagine you could feel it, depending on what.
Issa, back to the earring thing here. You're telling. All right, I'm gonna ramble through life activities. All right, so obviously, you're interviewing, you're doing podcasts, you're looking your best. Earring, I get it. Okay, all right. So, cooking dinner, earrings.
Yeah. I have an industrial piercing as well that you can't really take off and change like every day. Like you can't do that.
Swimming in the pool, earrings.
Yeah.
Working out, earrings.
Yes.
A good night.
I have about I think 9 piercings in my ears. So like, you really think I'm gonna take with these nails? You think I'm gonna be taking those off for everything and putting them back on? It's complicated. No.
A good night with a fella, earrings. Man, he's hardcore. All right, well, that be that. I hope nobody rips it out of your ear and you don't start getting color during whatever you're doing. Crimson Mask for Jon Moxley. Lionheart, Chris Jericho, of course, last surviving member of the Hart Dungeon, puts on the nice Bret Hart tribute, does the figure 4 around the ring post. That was pretty cool. He does the walls of Jericho during the entire commercial break.
Yeah,
I love that. I love that so much.
That was amazing. We didn't miss anything during the entire commercial break.
But to their credit, they come back from the break, and Moxley, hulking up, he gets to the rope, and the crowd bought it. So, whoever called the spot to let's do a 3-minute Boston Crab spot, it got the fans into it. So, all right. So, and that's the walls of Jericho, which is kind of your more traditional Boston Crab. Keep that in mind here. We'll get to that in a second. All right, I got to turn to our referee. Jericho removes the turnbuckle pad for 2 of the corners, throwing the turnbuckles. That gets referee Aubrey all flustered. She even leaves the ring to go collect such debris. Jim Ross isn't having it. Right. He calls out, why is the referee leaving the ring? But that's the distraction that allows Sammy Guevara to toss the baseball bat to Jericho. Jimmy, I want to ask, I know you don't like it. I'm not even going to ask if you like it. I know you don't like it.
Right.
What I want to ask is, if you are refereeing this match and this spot gets pitched to you from Chris frickin' Jericho, will you buck against him and say, Chris, this is making me look like a moron?
I wouldn't force it on him, but I would say something about it. And if they really wanted to do that spot, it is my job to do what they want me to do. And unfortunately, I would go along with it. But
you would have countered with a better reason to get you distracted, so Sammy could toss the baseball bat.
Yeah, because I would say, Chris, that doesn't make you look like you're outsmarting me. It makes me look like an idiot for going to go chase it. If you can come up with a better reason for me to want to do it, like I can't think of anything right off the top of my head right now, but there has to be a better way to distract the referee where they could throw the bat in there. And there's another thing I'm going to get to in a second about the bat.
So let's stick on this point real quick, because again, this is where having you on the podcast is so valuable. Because I mean, again, for people that are listening to this podcast, if they don't know Jimmy's history, Jimmy was with WWE from the late 80s until 2007, 2009. So this is a guy who's been with WWE for a long time. So I really value, your outlook on this. This is where I wonder, and this is where I also wonder, and WWE's done this too, where we have male and female refs. That's great. I'm all for the inclusion. Why not bump the ref so she's unconscious? Is that a case of it's a female ref with male competitors, and this looks bad having a male hit a female by accident?
But you can do it sorry, I don't mean to cut you off again, but you can do it simply where they don't do the damage. Where, let's say, for example, you want her to go pick something up on the ring apron, and as she steps through the ropes onto the ring apron, someone hits the ropes, she bumps off the ring. Now she's out of the way, and you didn't touch her. So there's ways around everything. I'm just throwing that out there. There seems to be this thing. I know they did one the other week, but there seems to be this thing at AEW where they don't want to do somebody there is just not a fan of ref bumps. And I'm not saying they should do one every week, but at the same time, when you need a real distraction, it doesn't hurt. And you don't have to bump them so that they're completely out of the way. It could be something like wind up back, the elbow hits, and you're like selling, you know what I mean?
Well,
as opposed to selling someone else getting hurt and overselling that.
Well, like you said, you don't want to do a ref every week, but like this is a world title match that you're giving the final 30 minutes. It's
not. It's a fake title.
Wow, but it's still we'll get to that in a second. But it's still world title, and you're giving it a fourth of the time. You're giving it a fourth of your block of time of your whole damn show. So if anything's going to be cause for a ref bump, this is the match, right?
Right. And I agree with that. And also I think because they used the bat in this match and they had blood in the first match, I think again, repetition is a little bit of a problem. I think they need to communicate better between matches. For example, look, I know that they use the skateboard with the thumbtacks to get blood in the first match, but if they're going to have blood in the first match, they got a lot of blood in the last match. It kind of takes away, and so does the use of a bat in the first and the last match. I just wish that they would have saved everything for maybe the last match. It was the main event, after all.
All right, let me run through the rest of this match, and then we'll do all of our thoughts here. So we see that spot. There's a false finish with Jericho hitting the juice effect, which is that spinning back elbow. Jericho does eventually eat his exposed buckle that he, of course, did. That then results in a lot of blood from him.
Gusher.
That actually looked. I mean, maybe I missed it. I'm taking notes. I'm not watching this close, but that looked like that might have been a hard way gash because I didn't see him.
R.I.P. Jericho's face. He took that accidental share to the head not too long ago, and now he's taking this because this didn't look like something that was intended to happen.
No, this looked like more blood than they wanted. He does the lion tamer, which is obviously different. It's a more it's a more vertical base of the Boston Crab, but ultimately Moxley is going to eventually counter and get him into a rear naked choke that they really again draw out, but eventually Jericho taps. So Moxley gets the win. After the match, Sammy and Jake Hager and eventually all the JAS are out there. Eventually Kingston, Ortiz, and the Blackpool Combat Club, they're all out there. So it is just Donnybrook of gang warfare. And finally, the return of the current AEW World Champion. He comes out, CM Punk clears house. We get the showdown, the face-to-face with he and Moxley. Moxley gives him the nice middle finger, tells him he's number one in his book. and again, I'm glad that they did the timing the way they did this. When the match ended at like 9:53 Eastern time, I was like, all right, 7 minutes, that's an eternity for them right now.
Mm-hmm.
They did this on purpose. Good on them. Let's not rush this aftermath. Issa, I assume Punk and Moxley is at All Out. What did this main event do for you? And I ask you for the Jericho purpose, I ask you for the Moxley purpose, and I ask you for the Punk purpose. What did this do for you for their world title?
It's not a real world title until CM Punk showed up. Let's be real. I never thought that we were going to get anything outside of Punk and Moxley. I do think it's been fun. I do think it's been fun to see Moxley defend the title and see it on television every week, but they have made it so clear that it's an interim. And as soon as CM Punk came out, like the commentary team could not say fast enough, the AEW World Champion. So what is this thing that Moxley is carrying around? A fake Louis Vuitton bag from Chinatown?
and Issa, Jim Ross even, I mean, look, when Aubrey left the ring, Jim Ross got pretty excited and pissed off that she left the ring. And even at one point, Ross just kind of like, it sounded like he put his drink down and went, Mox is not even the real champion anyway.
I know.
And commentary tried to prop back up, oh no, he's our interim champion. So even JR is even kind of speaking through some...
Right. So if the match was fun. I like that they gave him time. And I enjoy seeing Moxley get this moment in front of the fans, because I shared with you guys in the past his first AEW World Title reign was during the pandemic. We didn't get to see him have a reign in front of fans. But as soon as Punk came out, it just felt like, yeah, this is all for show. This is all filler until Punk came back. And that's what it felt like. Until you see Claudio freaking hyping him up like, no, you're still the champ to me, bro. Awesome to see CM Punk back. He was even making fun of himself because we just saw him at San Diego Comic-Con like acting like this foot is still broken in half, and now we see him looking healthy, excited to see him be back for All Out. I think it's gonna be fun. The match is gonna be fun, but I never doubted that it wasn't gonna be Punk and Mox, not even throughout Moxley's old fake title defenses. I always thought this is what we were going to get at.
Yeah, Punk bouncing around to show off. Yeah. What was fine. He looked like Scotty Too Hotty getting ready to do the worm.
Yeah, the way it was going. There you
go. Jimmy, your thoughts on this, and then I have a follow-up question after this.
No, I did enjoy the match. I did enjoy the ending to a certain point. I thought there was too much commotion afterwards. You know what I mean? I get it. JAS ran in, Blackpool Club, everybody hit the ring for Punk's big entrance. I just think it took too long for it to all transpire. Yes, they had plenty of time to do it finally, but they could have. I just think the brawling afterwards was a little much, and then Punk coming out and him and Mox having that stare down. I love the fact that they took their time. They didn't really have that handshaking moment, you know what I mean?
So Mox flipped him off and then shoulder bumped him out of the ring.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a little bit of like FU kind of thing at the same time, which was nice. And then, they end with Punk in his pipe bomb position sitting in the middle of the ring. And you know what I mean? I like the way it ended. It just, I thought the brawling afterwards was a little much. It didn't need to be that much. All
right, Robert Martinez, you got a super chat we're going to get to in a second. He sent it over an hour ago, so appreciate your patience. Okay. We'll get to it in a second. So, Jimmy, inevitably, All Out, your main event, who's the real world champion? Moxley or Punk?
See, yeah.
That's the inevitable, right?
Right.
Both guys battling for the right to be the world champion. Both guys former WWE stars, WWE champions. Is that the prime real estate for an MJF to reemerge and just take hostage that entire match?
That's what I was thinking. You took the words right out of my mouth. This is where, this is radio silence on MJF. Nobody has mentioned him. Nobody's talking about him. Even he's kind of gone radio silent as well. This would be the perfect opportunity for him to you got to somehow sneak him in the building the same way they snuck in John Cena at the Royal Rumble, where nobody knew who he was. You know what I mean? And that he was there, at Madison Square Garden. and just let him come out and just disrupt the entire thing and say, you guys did not build this place. I am the one who made AEW what is AEW, or whatever the verbiage is, just let MJF be MJF.
Call John Moxley Dean Ambrose on the mic.
Oh my goodness. See, there you go. See, and he's someone who can get away with it.
And the Chicago crowd will eat that up
entirely. And that would be the way to go, in my opinion. And that's how you get out of this match without crowning a, unified champion, or whatever you want to use the term, or and have the MJF just crap everything up.
Issa, it's inevitable, right? Moxley versus Punk. Long-term predictions. We're still a month away.
I mean, I would love to see what we're talking about here. MJF is my favorite. I miss him every week. They're putting on some incredible shows. I thought tonight was fun, but I still miss the presence of MJF in every show. I think it will be great. Even if that doesn't happen for whatever reason, I do see Punk finally winning and going on with the reign that he hasn't gotten a chance to really have. But I would love to see MJF coming and just mess everything up.
All right, Robert Martinez. Robert was one of our first super chats. Appreciate you waiting patient until it's time to get it. He says, "Wow, what a main event! I really thought Chris was going to babyface. He really is a wizard. Starks has a nice spear, better than Roman's. Ooh, he says that's
Robert, you had me in the first half. I'm not gonna lie, but you lost me at the last.
You had her till nicest spear.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, but I got to tell you, not better than Edge's.
Jim, I'm going to fight you there. I have a thing about spears.
Yeah, it's a size thing. It's a size thing. No guy that's 100 pounds gonna tell me.
That's the thing. I'm big on body types who give spears. I like I like how Bobby Lashley does this front roll through his.
Right.
That's a good thing. Of course, Goldberg got a spear. Reigns has got a spear. Edge is built he's too lengthy of a guy. I never bought into his spear.
He looks like a spear.
Same.
I'll tell you what. Ryan, I've been speared by Rhino.
Oh,
I've been out of all the things that I've felt in a ring, the most painful thing I've ever felt. I mean, I've been, Singapore caned by Sandman. I've been, the most painful thing I've dealt with is a spear. Once by Rhino recently, a few months ago, the Gore. Once by our promoter. So I'm not a trained wrestler.
Oh.
The two different spears that I've gotten are I felt it, and I nearly puked. That's been the worst thing I've ever felt. I've been Wardlow's giving me his damn thing and whatever. Spear is a thing, but I'm big on the spear, but Edge, I never got behind. I never thought Edge should have a spear as part of his repertoire.
No, I don't know. Maybe because I'm kind of biased, the good Canadian kid, and also you talk about being speared. I have been speared by Edge, and he did protect me very well.
Oh yeah, really keep in mind, I'm not talking. This is not a kayfabe talk. I'm not talking about who does it safely.
No.
I'm talking about visually what it looks like. Visually, what it looks. I just never like. I think you need a bigger upper body for a spear to look. Again, Lashley looks good. Goldberg looks good. Rhino looks good. I thought Edge's the crazy DDT that he would do, the elevated. That looked good.
Yeah.
Spear was never something I thought for him.
That's fair.
That. All right. That was AEW Dynamite tonight from the Quake by the Lake in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Thank goodness it wasn't a mistake by the lake, but anyway.
Well, it's going to continue. The Quake by the Lake's going to continue for Rampage that they're taping right now this Friday. Issa, give us some final thoughts and some cheap plugs.
No, I actually thought that this episode of Dynamite was a lot of fun. It was something for everyone. Every style of match, you had a surprise return. You had a couple of storylines building backstage. I enjoyed the show. I was entertained. And you guys can find me on Twitter, NYC Demon Diva, also on YouTube, Lucha Libre Online. I got all kinds of interviews coming out that I did over at Nashville.
Love it. Jimmy, cup of coffee tomorrow morning for the Ref and Rant. What's it about?
It's tomorrow's Ref and Rant, I think, is going to be about. Let me think now. Now that I think about it, it might have something to do with one of our news topics from tonight.
Ooh.
Yeah, as opposed to from the show tonight. I'll save something from the show tonight for Friday's Ref and Rant. But you can see the Ref and Rants right here at Jimmy Korderas, at my Twitter, Real Jimmy Korderas on Instagram. And of course, you can catch myself, Justin, and Jack on Mondays. Triple J doing the Raw review. And you can catch the three of us here every Wednesday night reviewing Dynamite, which is I'm having a blast doing. Thank you guys. This is a lot of fun. And for those of you out there, you mentioned tonight's show. Yes, I was entertained. And the one thing you said, Issa, that I completely agree with is you got different styles of matches tonight, a little bit of everything. And that's what I liked. We had variety.
Buffet was open for sure. Jimmy, great stuff. First Jimmy with his coffee, his Maxwell House, and no creamer. Drinking it black. Can't do it.
No, that's my wife who drinks it black. I got to take one sugar and just a little bit of creamer.
Oh, it's Audra who's the devil.
Yeah, Audra's yeah, she's the tough one in the family.
Can't deal with it. All right, very good. All the great plugs again. Thanks to everybody for tuning in live. If you're checking us out on the archive or on the audio only, we appreciate it. Again, hit subscribe, hit like, leave a comment, tell a friend. You tell one friend. If everybody tells one friend, this thing grows. Again, please tweet at all of us at Justin LaBar, at NYCDNDiva, at Jimmy Korderas. Let us know where in the world are you watching or listening. What do you enjoy most about the show? Whatever the case may be. I love to share those whenever we get them. Really appreciate it. That's going to do it for tonight. Again, check out Wrestling Inc. Brand new layout for your news stories all week long. So check that out. And we'll be back, this crew, next Wednesday. Jimmy and myself and Jack next Monday. Be good. Be safe. Have some fun. It's wrap.